Welcome, everybody. My name is Rachel. I'm a registered dietitian with Arch Amenities Group, and this is the Superfoods presentation. So very excited to bring this presentation to you. I think superfoods is a big buzzword. We hear a lot. So we're going to dive into what that really means and what foods you can consume to get the most bang for your buck, the most nutrition for what you're consuming. So let's jump in. So first we'll talk about what a superfood actually is. We're going to hit topics such as nutrient density today, important nutrients that you want to make sure you're consuming in your diet, how to tell if a food is actually a superfood. We'll compare nutrients in different foods for some concrete examples of that, and then we'll look at some superfood recipes as well. So a superfood really has no legal definition. So when you're looking at, packages as far as marketing goes, really anyone can call anything a superfood, technically. The pastry I ate this morning could be called a superfood, and I promise it was not. So when we're thinking about what actually makes a superfood, I think we're trying to get the healthiest foods we can consume, right? I think that's the general accepted definition for superfood. And so in order to get the most, the healthiest foods we can, something you can think about is nutrient density. And so what nutrient density means is how many nutrients I'm getting, the volume of healthy nutrients per calorie that I'm consuming, right? Because we can only consume so many calories in a day, whether you're on a weight loss program or just in general. And so when we think about nutrient density, antioxidants, vitamins and minerals, phytochemicals, how many of those that you're getting per calorie that you're consuming. There's also essential nutrients and nutrients shown to help lower our disease risk. Antioxidants and phytochemicals being on that list for sure. A couple other buzzwords. Antioxidants are the nutrients in our food that can help bind something called free radicals, which we can come into contact with through various parts of our lifestyle, right? Sometimes it's the air we breathe, sometimes it's what we're consuming. So a lot of different reasons we might get free radicals in our body, which are just components that can damage cells and potentially cause disease. So antioxidants are nutrients that will bind those and remove them from our body, right? And then phytochemicals can do something similar. They can be an antioxidant. They're a little bit bigger umbrella with what phytochemicals are. And they can help reduce inflammation, help with DNA repair. So really helpful in disease prevention, particularly if you're talking about lowering your risk for diseases such as cancer, then antioxidants and phytochemicals are definitely your friend. Fiber is another one we'll touch on a little bit today, another super healthy nutrient for us, particularly for gut health, which I think is the next presentation on our National Nutrition Webinar Day. But we'll touch on that a little bit today as well. So there's some easy tells when we're thinking about what might be considered a superfood. The first thing you can look at is, first of all, fruits and vegetables. It's pretty hard to go wrong with fruits and vegetables, right? Unless you have a particular allergy or intolerance. When we're looking at color, the dark, rich, and vibrant colors tend to be associated with a higher nutrient density than those a little bit more bland or less vibrant colors. White is kind of the visual exception to this. And if anyone is a physics nerd, you might know that white is all of the colors on the spectrum versus the absence of color. So you can think of it that way when you're thinking of foods like onions or cauliflower. These are very nutrient-dense foods. Other than color, we can think about foods in their whole food form. So the more recognizable it is from nature, the more likely it is to be nutrient dense and healthful for us. Fresh or frozen tend to be a little bit healthier for us than canned or really heavily processed products. Thinking about if you are going for those packaged products, looking for minimal ingredients or or additives in that product, particularly if you're looking at salt and sugar, because to make something shelf stable, often those are added to your products. So trying to find prepackaged products with less than 20% of your daily value for salt and sugar can help you figure out if it's a little bit healthier option. Maybe not a superfood, but we all get busy and we need some prepackaged things every now and then. So what I would consider not a superfood is really highly processed food. So I would say juice is probably one of these, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. Enriched and bleached products, this typically is referring to grains, rice, and wheat products. Oils and products that are high in salt, sugar, trans or saturated fat probably shouldn't be considered a superfood just because really high amounts of these nutrients can be less healthful for us. So I've got a little bit of some comparisons here to give you some real examples of these. So when we're comparing whole wheat bread to white bread, this is a great whole food form example. So when whole wheat bread is processed, the grain is more intact before it goes into the baking process versus with white bread and white flour, right? And so when we're comparing the nutrient data here, per 100 grams, I'm consuming typically a little bit more calories in the white bread. I get less protein out of the white bread than I do a whole wheat bread. I get a lot less fiber, which I think is the big key here, because that fiber is going to help slow your digestion down, helping you have a little bit more stable energy versus really high carbohydrate foods without a lot of fiber often kind of spike our energy, our blood sugar levels, and then we kind of get that energy crash later in the day. So that fiber component is very helpful, both for our energy as well as our gut health. And then something I will say about enriched products, which is what you find typically with white bread, sometimes they're a little higher in B vitamins, but we tend to lose a lot more nutrients than gets added back to the enriched products, right? So in your whole wheat bread, you're going to have a lot more magnesium, zinc, phosphorus, potassium, other nutrients as well. We do have a little bit higher B vitamins in the white bread just because they're fortified into it, but we're losing a lot of those other nutrients in the process. So this is a great example of trying to find foods in their whole food form, or as close to the whole food form as you can. I don't know anybody who just eats wheat. All right, so the next one, comparing grapes to grape juice. So this is an example of food processing, right? In grapes, I do get a little bit of fiber versus that is removed in the juicing process. So without the fiber, it's going to absorb more quickly. We'll have a more immediate energy. So it definitely has a place in our diet, right? Particularly if, just before a workout, these more simple carbohydrates can be very helpful. But if we're thinking about nutrient density and overall health, grapes are probably a little bit better option than grape juice. I included lutein, zeaxanthin, and beta carotene on here just because these are really common antioxidant phytochemicals. And so we're going to compare the values in the whole food form versus the processed form. So you can see that we actually do have a little bit higher antioxidant levels in grapes than when you bring it down to its juiced form. And then looking at color. So hate to bash on grapes today. There's nothing wrong with grapes, but if we're thinking about nutrient density, the most nutrients for what you're consuming, blueberries are probably a little bit better option. So I'm going to have way higher levels of those antioxidants, lutein, zeaxanthin, beta carotene, you can see at the bottom. I actually get a little bit more fiber as well. And so this is a good example of how color can make a difference in how much of that nutrient density you are consuming. Another great example of color, and also just a plug for dark leafy greens because they're amazing, something you should include in your diet frequently. So looking at iceberg lettuce compared to spinach, iceberg lettuce is a lot lighter in color, spinach is a much darker, richer color. And you can see a phenomenal difference in the antioxidants, the beta carotene, lutein, zeaxanthin. in spinach compared to iceberg lettuce. And just looking at those antioxidant levels down there is kind of the plug for dark leafy greens. So spinach, kale, collards, really any dark leafy green that you can include in your diet is going to be a great option. Nothing wrong with iceberg lettuce. We definitely get some good nutrients for this as well. You just won't get quite as much bang for how much you're consuming. So I would consider spinach the superfood here. Oils, we're going to talk a little bit about coconut oil today, because I know that that is kind of a trendy food right now. And not just trendy, but it's something that a lot of cultures have used for a really long time. So we'll talk a bit about that today. In this slide, I'm comparing olive oil to coconut oil, and we're looking at saturated fat in particular, only because saturated fat is more negatively associated with our heart health. And so when we compare olive oil, it has more unsaturated fats, a little bit more cardioprotective, considered better for our heart health, versus coconut oil is a little bit higher in the saturated fat. Where coconut oil is kind of special in, some of the studies they have done, it has medium chain fatty acids, which is a very special type of saturated fat that you don't find in animal-based products that are high in saturated fat. And so the medium chain fatty acids can actually be very helpful for our gut health and inflammation response in the body. And so that's really, I think, where a lot of the hype around coconut oil is coming from. The problem is the coconut oil you typically find on the shelf doesn't have that same nutrient components than the oils that they put into those studies. And so that's where kind of the disconnect is with how healthy coconut oils are. So I wouldn't consider it a superfood or not a superfood. I think it's kind of on the same level as most oils, something that's great to cook with, add in your diet in moderation. And so the hype around coconut oil, those medium chain fatty acids, they can increase our HDL, our good cholesterol levels. So that's that cardioprotective effect that some of those studies were looking at. But they also increase our LDL, which is considered our less healthy cholesterol. So once again, not really a superfood or not a superfood. It's got some healthy and less healthy components to it. If you're looking to get the healthiest oils possible to include in your diet, you can look for names on the label such as virgin or extra virgin. And really what this means in the context of oils is it's gone through a lighter processing, and it's retained some of those antioxidants and micronutrients. When we're looking at coconut oil, it has retained some of that lauric acid, some of the medium chain fatty acid that's actually very healthy for us, versus other coconut oils you'll find on the shelf don't have that. And then it's still going to increase that LDL, that less healthy cholesterol, but you'll also get the good cholesterol effects and some of these other benefits from that oil if it has that virgin or extra virgin label on it. Right. Next on our superfoods comparison, looking at probiotics and prebiotics, another good buzzword that you probably have heard of. So probiotics are really foods or even supplements that contain healthy bacteria. And the goal of consuming probiotics is to help repopulate the healthy gut bacteria in our gut, right? And then when we think of prebiotics, these are the nourishment for those bacteria. So really when we say prebiotic, mostly that means fiber, right? And there's a few other nutrients that feed our gut bacteria, but the biggest one that they feed off of the most is fiber. So whole foods, right? Your fruits, your vegetables, nuts, legumes, whole grains, those are all going to give you a variety of different fibers with that balanced diet to help support your gut health. And it depends on the person, but I would say for general overall health, prebiotics and getting enough fiber in your diet is probably a little bit more important than consuming those probiotic containing foods. Both healthy, both can be great to include in your diet. I would consider the prebiotic, those fiber dense foods, your superfood. over a probiotic food. Right. And so we know there's no technical definition for superfood, right? Really, we're just thinking about all those foods that are nutrient dense, that are going to give you the most nutrients for what you're consuming, what you're paying for even. So I have a list of what I would consider some great superfoods here. So top of the list is dark leafy greens. Something we've heard of forever, and it's for good reason. Dark leafy greens have a multitude of vitamins, minerals, and as we saw in that iceberg and spinach comparison, tons of antioxidants and phytochemicals, super duper healthy for us. Good to include those regularly. Cauliflower and broccoli are considered cruciferous vegetables, super high in vitamin C, vitamin K, and A. Citrus fruits, blueberries, walnuts. Salmon has a cardioprotective effect in particular. If you're someone who eats fish, that's great. If not, get all those walnuts, nuts, and seeds into your diet. Also great sources of healthy fats and certain vitamins and minerals. Garlic is a fun one, very high in phytochemicals, antioxidants, as well as potassium, B6, and vitamin C. Mushrooms, high in our B vitamins, and we do actually need a little bit of copper in our diet. It's a mineral that we need a small amount of. Beans and lentils, fantastic source of fiber, B vitamins, iron, zinc, magnesium. So this isn't a comprehensive list, but this can be a good reference point if you're trying to think about some essential foods that you want to include in your diet frequently. All right, and to the fun part, I included just a few recipes here that I really enjoy that give you some examples of how to use some of these superfoods. So I have brown rice macaroni in this one, just because your brown rice or whole wheat products are going to give you a little bit more fiber, a little bit more nutrition than your more processed wheat or rice products. We have some extra virgin olive oil. Again, maybe not a superfood, but a little bit healthier oil version, and it's going to give you that texture and that cooking component that you need. We have mushrooms, we have some onion, we've got edamame. This is another great food, especially if you are vegetarian or vegan. Edamame is a great source of protein, and so are frozen peas. Spinach, we're going to get a little bit of protein, and of course, all those health effects from the leafy greens as well. So I'd say this is a pretty balanced meal. I have a good amount of protein in this. I have some carbohydrates, some healthy fats. Something you might consider trying. Blueberry oat muffins. This is another one that I like to make as a grab and go breakfast food, or maybe a snack that you can bring with you. Oats are going to be super high in fiber. We've got some cinnamon, some blueberries. This makes a really good snack, or maybe even part of a healthy breakfast. Baked salmon kebabs. Anytime I can combine salmon with lemon and garlic, so good. So this is another favorite of mine. We've got lots of vegetables thrown in there, a good variety of colors. We've got some greens, we've got some reds. Lemon ginger smoothie. This is fantastic if you're not a greens person. Smoothies are a great way to sneak greens into your diet. So you can see I've got kale here, which cuts really well with sweeter fruits like mango, and lemon in particular. Citrus is going to cut that earthy taste of kale really well. Great way to get some greens, some fruits, and some ginger into your diet. That's another one we'd probably consider a superfood. Ginger, fresh or spiced, has some very good health benefits for us. Too much of a good thing. Sometimes I get this question of if you can overconsume a food or a supplement, and it's definitely possible. More concerning if you're out of balance in other areas of your diet, right? So if you're consuming 15 oranges a day, and maybe that's replacing some other components that would just help balance that diet out and give you a more variety of nutrients, then that can be an issue. But for the most part, it's difficult to get toxic levels of nutrients in our bloodstream from whole food products, right? Usually that's only a concern when you are over supplementing or using supplements that are low quality. So can you get too much of a good thing? Yeah, that is always possible. But when you're consuming a variety of whole foods, it's very difficult to do that. So looking at the big picture, there's no one perfect superfood that's going to give you everything you need in your diet in a day, right? We still need a variety of these different food groups and foods to get the variety of nutrients that we need. A great focus point is looking at foods in their whole food form, dark, rich, vibrant colors, and trying to get that plate balance, right? When I look at the plate, I kind of think of this as food groups I want to get in my entire day and the volumes of those different food groups, right? A third to half of the plate of fruits and vegetables is often the hardest one to do. That can be a great focus point for getting nutrient-dense foods as well as overall health. And making sure you're getting fiber-rich foods, healthy proteins, and healthy fats. I have some references here, and I can send out these slides if anyone is interested in these. I found some good articles on Superfoods. USDA.gov is where you can find nutrient contents of foods if you're a nerd like me and you're very curious about that. There's also a great article from Stanford about phytochemicals and your cancer risk. And then a good article about coconut oil, the studies surrounding that, and then all the pictures that I stole from the internet. Little plug here, the Eat Well program is starting next week. Be sure to check that out if you're someone who wants more concrete help on meal planning, grocery shopping, meal prep. We'll also talk about portion control and mindful eating and how all of those can just help you maintain a healthy diet or even a healthy weight. All right. And that is all I have, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. I'll go ahead and open up the chat box here for questions. Oh, go back to the screen with the QR code. Yes, absolutely. Let's see, we have a question here. What are the healthiest types of nuts? Ooh, that's a great question. I would say walnuts and almonds are probably our most nutrient dense if we're talking about superfood. But all nuts, I would say all nuts have a healthy place in our diet. Peanuts, fantastic. You're going to have a little bit higher saturated fat from cashews and from macadamia nuts. But the saturated fat, again, that we get from plant-based foods tends to work a little differently in our body than from our animal-based products. And a little bit of saturated fat definitely doesn't hurt you. But if you're looking for, the most nutrient dense, I would say almonds and walnuts are probably your healthiest nuts. Another question, thoughts on avocado oil? Yeah, again, with oils, I think it kind of comes down to moderation in our diet overall. So great to cook with. Avocado oil is great in that it has a high cooking temperature, so it doesn't burn easily. And when we burn an oil, we add free radicals, less healthy components to our body that can damage our cells if overconsumed. So with avocado oil, great to cook with. If you can find one that says virgin or extra virgin, probably even better. But oils, just the way that they're processed down from their whole food form, aren't necessarily going to be a superfood for us. They don't have a ton of nutrients like, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals left in them in the processing down to an oil form. But yeah, perfectly healthy to consume in moderation. If you're looking for salad dressings, extra virgin olive oil tends to be the least processed one, probably the healthiest for us to consume. But when we're looking at cooking, olive oil burns very easily. So avocado oil might be a better option for cooking, or canola oil or butter or coconut oil, anything that doesn't burn as much as olive oil does. That turned into a bit of a rant, but I hope that answered your question. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop the presentation here. Have a great rest of your day.